Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to be here moderating this event for you all. My name is Sophia Hall, and I'm a recruiter here at Splunk. I work primarily with our sales teams, but I've been known to dip my toes in the water of some other groups as well. I am also the co-lead of our BEAMS, Black Employees and Mentors recruiting work group. And as we celebrate Black History Month, the theme chosen by our amazing ERG here is Black is Essential. So today we're going to highlight some of the essential employees and roles here at a tech company that do not require a technical background. I'll walk you through a quick introduction to Splunk and some of our non-technical opportunities here, and then spend the bulk of our time chatting with some of our amazing Black Splunkers about the essential work they do here. Throughout the event, please feel free to use the chat for any questions you may have, and we'll do our best to address them. So I'm sure most of you have heard of Splunk, but here's a quick overview of what and who we are. So Splunk is the first data to everything platform. What does that mean? It means we bring data to everything. What I mean by this is when we say everything, we mean we're here to bring data to every question, every decision, and every outcome. In short, we're here to bring data to every business outcome. That's the power of Splunk. We are leaders in IT operations, security, IoT, and business analytics. So that's what Splunk does. And now on to who we are. So Splunk may be a company, but we're also a community. We have over 6,000 employees across the globe and 20,000 customers. We've continued to see strong revenue growth after being the first data company to go public in 2012. And guess what? We're hiring. That's probably why we're here. So Splunk hires people at all stages of their careers, from interns spending a semester or summer with us to the executive level. We look for folks that embody our values: innovative, disruptive, passionate, open, and fun. I'd like to highlight just a few of the teams here at Splunk that make up our go-to-market and G&A organizations. So our go-to-market teams encompass all of our sales, marketing, and partnerships teams. These are the teams that help Splunk generate revenue. Our HR and talent teams focus on bringing in and fostering the growth of our employees, and our operations teams help us keep our strength going as well. I'd like to highlight a bit about BEAMS, the employee resource group that is also sponsoring this event. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. The mission of BEAMS is dedicated to bringing Black excellence through equipping our members with the access, vision, skills, and knowledge needed to excel at Splunk. We focus on career development for our Black employees, recruitment and retention, mentorship, and giving back to the community. So let's go on to the main event. I am thrilled to introduce you to some of our Splunkers who truly embody the ideal that Black is essential. I'm going to give them a few minutes to introduce themselves, starting with Bobby Travis. Bobby, could you share a little bit about your career before Splunk and what you are doing here?
Hey everyone, my name is Bobby Travis. I'm a legal operations analyst here. So my strategic business partnerships are with our legal compliance, risk, and products team. Prior to Splunk, I worked primarily in the financial sector as an executive assistant, so supporting C-level executives. And I didn't have the traditional administrative role, so I would dabble into a lot of event planning. I adopted a lot of skill sets in project management, managing budgets, and operational improvements. So I found myself in my career kind of growing in the depth and the breadth of the role of an executive assistant, but I was hitting a glass ceiling as it pertained to the upward mobility that was offered in those sectors. And so I decided, why not try a tech company? Splunk had an opportunity for me to come on board as an executive assistant supporting our chief marketing officer at the time. And at that time, I was able to kind of establish my personal brand and go forth and establish relationships, join BEAMS, which I can explain a little bit later. And that's how I found myself into the role I'm in today. Felicia?
Thanks, Bobby. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Hamilton, and I work as a best practices associate as basically sales support for Splunk. I've been with the organization a little bit over 5 years, like 5.5 years now. And prior to Splunk, I have worn many hats, been in the workforce for quite a number of years. I won't tell you how many, but a few. And this was my first tech role. Prior to, I mostly did some sales as well as customer service. And my story of how I got to Splunk is pretty interesting because I had been working at a elevator company as a quote and order analyst. And I've been there probably about 2 years, and I received a call from a recruiter asking me if I'd be interested in working as a sales operations analyst for a tech company. And the name of that company back then was VCE, which is now Dell EMC. It was a contract role, but it was paying a lot of money. And so I kind of thought back and forth about it, and I thought, why not? Let's see where this takes me. I've always been a risk taker. I've always been pretty adventurous. And so I signed on. I left my full-time job with benefits, and unfortunately, that job did not lead me where I wanted it to lead me. I was there 9 months. I was promised that I would be hired on within 3 months. And ironically, I never even operated in the role in which I was hired to. And so it was a little frustrating, and I began to look for another opportunity, and I found Splunk and had never heard of Splunk. But what was interesting was, and I tell this story all the time and people laugh about it, what was interesting was the role mirrored what I was supposed to be doing at VCE. And so I thought, well, I'm not actually doing it. However, on paper, why not? Let me give it a try. And I submitted my resume on a Sunday, and I received a call from the hiring manager that very same day. And she said she couldn't believe how right I was for the job. And I'm thinking to myself, okay. And I had a 30-minute conversation with her the next day. I did find out that the job was actually contract as well. And I was a little bit fearful of moving into another contract role, but she promised me that within 3 months I would be hired on. And so I took a leap of faith. I joined Splunk. And here I am 5.5 years later. I love what I do here. Splunk is an organization that I feel truly embodies so many values in terms of the culture here. It is one where I truly, personally feel like I'm a part of a family. I also feel like I am a part of an organization that truly does care about my career growth and development. I've actually been promoted once since being here, and I'm actually looking at another promotion in the next couple of months. And so if you want career progression, it certainly is many opportunities for you to do that as well here at Splunk. So I, again, love what I do, and I'm looking forward to many more years here at Splunk. And with that being said, Christopher, I'll toss it on over to you.
Thank you, Felicia. I want your life story on the screen personally. That was amazing. Hi everyone, my name is Christopher Russell. I am a senior product marketing operations manager here at Splunk, and I focus on our product launches. So making sure that all of the product launches and the go-to-market motions happen smoothly, and that the websites and all the content and communications that go out about our new products goes out smoothly. And I'm coming from a background of working in lots of different tech startups and actually working in solar. My formal education is in civil engineering. I am not doing that now, but I think what a lot of the kind of transferable skills of synthesizing information, communicating out and coordinating with teams. All of that has been in my experience doing engineering, doing project management, and also doing product management for several startups in the Bay Area. And so my time at Splunk has been quite amazing. I've been here for about 4.5 years, and I've gotten so many different types of roles here. I've done plenty of lateral moves and also promotion. So it's been a really exciting experience for me these past couple of years. And I was also recently elected as the president of BEAMS, our Black Employees and Mentors ERG, who, and a lot of us are on the, all of us are on the call today. People at the BEAMS community are here. So this is just super fun to have this conversation with you all here today. And I am passing this off to Sean. Sean.
Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, everyone. I'm Sean Hightower. I've been here for a little less than 2 years. I'm a regional sales manager, and I'm not actually a people manager. I'm an individual contributor to the overall sales business, and this is a wonderful place to work. I've had a lot of fun working with companies all over the nation, helping them address their challenges. And for those of you that don't know, data is very valuable. And I actually came here through a recruiter who reached out to me. I thought it was a phishing scam or some phishing attempt. I'm like, this can't be Splunk from San Francisco, but it was. And I've had nothing but just a ton of success here, talking to different customers in different industries, helping them, solve their challenges. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Jennifer.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Jennifer Connor. I'm probably the new kid on the block. I've been here since December. Before joining Splunk, I worked in change leadership at Southwest Airlines, helping to support business agility and transformation efforts within the technology organization. My background is in HR and change management. I've led high-performing HR teams at other tech companies, specifically Nokia and Microsoft. I've also worked in other industries, healthcare, nonprofit, government, and consulting. And I will say tech is by far my favorite industry, which was a huge motivator for me joining Splunk. And look forward to chatting with you guys today. And I'll pass it back over to Sophia.
Thank you so much, everyone. So my name is Sophia, and I am a sales recruiter here at Splunk. I came to Splunk actually via the acquisition of a smaller startup called SignalFX, where I was a recruiter for a few months. It was a very exciting time to be at a startup during the acquisition process. I will freely admit that I had never heard of Splunk until I found out I would be working here shortly. So it was a very interesting way to join, for sure. I currently recruit for our observability group, which is the group that SignalFX kind of turned into as they came into the Splunk family, and for some of our West Coast regional sales manager roles at the enterprise and strategic level. I am super excited to be moderating this event, and I think we should get started with the Q&A. And as a friendly reminder, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible. So I'm going to kick it off by putting Bobby on the spot and asking her, the theme for Black History Month here at Splunk this year is Black is Essential. So what does that mean to you?
Well, that's tough to tackle in one sentence. I think of Black is Essential, the phrase, as kind of like the root from where we came from and how it has evolved into being embedded in everything that we do and how we operate in the world today. Just taking the acknowledgement of knowing that Black folks were enslaved, and forced into a workforce against their will and doing labor such as cleaning and, picking cotton and kneading in the fields, and then still reinventing the wheel. They're singing and creating songs while doing work against their will. They're doing artistry in their darkest days. And then now, we look at this evolution of workforce, right? Whether it's, manual labor and looking at blue collar folks and all the things that we use today, such as the stoplight and actually having color in our PCs. And those are engineered by Black inventors. And so just being able to see how the roots from where we came from are embedded in everything that we use today, not having to explain the value behind that, but just let our work speak for itself, really illustrates the concept and the phrase of Black being essential. So for me, that's kind of trying to paint an overarching picture of what it looks like today.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything they want to share as to what Black is Essential means to them? Chris, you're on mute. I think you.
Here we go.
The Zoom world, right? This
Yeah,
is welcome
right?
to 2021.
So I'll add that for Black is Essential, as this being our theme for Black History Month this year, kind of really, as Bobby said, taking from being enslaved to really thinking about like what essentialness means today. So we talk about essential workers. Today we're talking about essential roles. Like what does it take to have a modern tech company today? We need the data and we need all of these back-end things to work, but we need words, we need creativity, we need stories to tell our potential customers as to why they might even want to use the software. And so like that in terms of like the essentialness and all of the spaces that we inhabit here, like this theme was fun and creative to put together, but it also is touching on some deep subjects that we're excited to explore this month. So, and Black people have been doing essential things and innovating and doing them in such interesting and beautiful ways for such a long time. So it's cool to bring that together as well.
Thank you so much. Sean, our next question is for you, sir. So how have your experiences as a Black person shaped your career goals and what you think is possible for you in your career?
Definitely, that's a great question, Sophia. Thanks for asking. I've worked a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things, and at all the jobs I've worked at, seeing a lack of Blacks in mid-level positions or even senior level positions was something that really motivated me to just do more than I can do all that I can to just, show my name and show some respect to my name, actually, and after so many years, this is what I've been looking for. I've been looking after that power role. I want to walk into a room and people just get silent because the senior vice president is here, and that's what really motivates me to do my best. And with that being said, you really have to know who you are. You have to know what you want, and you have to understand what you're capable of doing, and you can't limit yourself. The sky is not the limit, and don't let anyone tell you that. Don't believe that. And here at Splunk, it's created such a culture where I believe I'm capable of doing anything. And Felicia and Christopher and Bobby are all prime examples of what it takes to even be a leader here at Splunk. And we hire legendary people. We hire the best. And what you see here today is a testament to that. So just overachieving and believing in myself is one thing that's going to drive me to get me where I want to be. And I believe Splunk provides the foundation for that.
Definitely. And I totally agree with you, Sean, that if you want something, you have to ask for it. And I think at times that, as a Black woman, I have felt that trickle down effect of I should just be grateful to be here. And that's not true. I deserve to be here. I've earned my spot. And if I want more, I'm going to ask for it. But it is something that you have to internalize within yourself first before you can get there. So I totally agree. Felicia, I see you really nodding your head on that one. Do you have anything to sort of say about how being a Black person has shaped your goals as well? Yeah.
Yes, just to piggyback, I hate that word, but to piggyback, I will say it is very important to never allow someone else to see your worth and you not see your own worth. And I was guilty of that for a number of years. I would get feedback from my peers as well as leadership, and it was all positive, but in my mind, I couldn't understand what they were seeing. And it took me a while before I really began to see my own worth. And I wasted so many years, and I probably missed some opportunities. And so I would encourage everyone, know your worth. And once you know your worth, the sky truly is the limit. And then also, as you stated, you have an opportunity then where you can ask for what you want. Last year, when we were writing our business plans, I said to management, I'm happy where I am in this role, but I want to progress in this role. There currently is not a senior best practices associate. There's not a role, but I am creating that role. I said, this is where I want to move to next year. And let's talk about what that looks like. What do you think that looks like? And I'll tell you what I think that looks like. And we're going to go ahead and create this role. And so that's what we're doing now. And so to have that opportunity to do that is amazing, because that's not something that you see at every company. But my leadership immediately said, okay, let's do it. You tell us what you want. We'll tell you what we want. We'll meet in the middle and figure out how to make this happen. And so, again, I just encourage everyone, if you don't take anything away from this, please know your worth. And that's it.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Our next question is for our Splunk newbie, Jennifer. You joined Splunk during COVID, so we're all fully remote. Splunk plans to be fully remote through at least September of this year. And we were actually one of the first companies to fully shut down in support of, just staying safe. So what's it been like joining, as a fully remote employee during COVID? I'm sure we all are suffering from a little bit of Zoom fatigue, but how have you been able to build a community, as a new person in a team that's growing exponentially during these sort of, I hate to say the term, these unprecedented times, but during these unprecedented times?
Yeah, right. Well, I think I forgot to mention, we were introducing ourselves, kind of what I do here at Splunk. So I am leading our Splunk People Operations team for the Americas. And probably the best way to describe the work we do is we take care of our employees so that they can take care of our customers. That's kind of a little bit of an elevator pitch, a quick way to look at the work that we do. I would say the interview process was well organized. There was lots of flexibility in meeting with different team members, both those I would work with directly and those who are considered key internal partners within the people department. The pre-boarding and onboarding processes were pretty simple. There was lots of communication leading up to my start date from the hiring manager, IT, and the Splunk People Operations team that we call SPOT. I received a laptop a few days before my start date and a quick start guide to get everything set up for day one. I also had a customized 90-day onboarding plan to help me get started, which was really nice. I believe that relationships are really the most important thing you can focus on when joining a new company or taking on a new role. I mean, really in life. I've focused my time and energy on just doing that, just getting to know people, and working remotely for me hasn't posed any challenges that have prevented me from meeting people. It's just a matter of a Zoom meeting or even a simple telephone conversation. I don't discount the need for people to go low tech when connecting, and you are so right, video fatigue is real. As far as my team, I prioritize one-on-ones with each of them every week, which I would have done even if we were all in the office together. Just making sure that every team member has what they need is one of my highest priorities. I check in with them throughout the week, either through Slack, a text message, or even just a simple email. And I just remind them that I am available for them always.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Does anyone else want to talk about some of the challenges we've faced during COVID being remote? I know some roles have been fully remote. Some people are loving it. Some people really miss our free lunches and free breakfasts sometimes. But does anyone else want to, just tackle working remotely while we're chatting about it? All right, I'll move on to the next question. So Felicia, this year has seen a lot of challenges for the Black community. We had a summer of protests, a contested election, and a global pandemic. So all of those things have sort of disproportionately affected people of color. How do you stay focused on work when there's so much noise going on? How do you take care of yourself, and how do you focus on work?
I am really glad to have been asked this question because it was very difficult for me in the beginning. And as a matter of fact, I took a few days off. I just called my manager and I can't do it. I need a moment because honestly, I had never been affected the way I was after the murder of George Floyd. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I had all these emotions and I didn't know where to place them. And what was interesting was I actually did something that I'd never done before, and that was I went live on, well, I didn't go live on Facebook, but I created a video and just expressed how I was feeling. And I actually probably cried through the entire thing. And I'm saying crocodile tears, big sobs, and it was pretty ugly and disgusting, but I was just raw and I had to get it out. And so I posted it on Facebook. It got over 2,500 views. It was unbelievable. But it was my outlet in that moment so that I could just let some of that go. And ultimately, what that resulted in was I started a little talk show on Facebook called Let's Talk, Let's Listen. It was where I invited some of my friends who don't look like me to come and have a discussion. And I invited others to be a part of the discussion, to ask questions and to get a better understanding. My idea behind the talk show was to ask my Caucasian friends to just listen and to allow my African American brothers and sisters to talk. Hence, let's talk, let's listen. And so that became my outlet. And I was able to really start to heal a little bit, some of the wounds that I had. And then I became more involved with Beams. I joined Beams 2 years ago, but had not really been active. And so again, that allowed me as well to be able to kind of start healing in a way and then be involved, be the change that I wanted to see. And which ultimately allowed me to be more effective in my job because I was not doing very well. I was angry. Can I just say that? I was becoming that angry Black woman.
I
And
think a lot of us were mad.
yeah, and I was mad for weeks. And it was scary to me. But then once I found these different outlets and I began to immerse myself in just different material reading and just trying to understand, what could I do? That made all the difference in the world to me because, we can look and we can judge and we can lament about things that we see, situations and circumstances that are going on, but we all play a part. We have responsibility to make a difference and to be a part again of the change that we want to see. And so that's what I've been doing.
Awesome.
So
Thank you for that. And I think it's true. You have to find your outlet. Sean, it looks like you wanted to add to that as well.
Yeah, throughout that time, our CEO, Doug Merritt, who is the coolest guy ever, I mean, he was on the front lines being very vocal about all the racial inequality and all the bad stuff going on throughout this time. So that really propelled me to go into really 500% mode, seeing the top leader in my company, back, the Black community, with everything that was going on. I mean, it was so much more easier to stay focused. And being a leader and having past experiences, as tough as it was for me to go through that, being with my counterparts on my team, I had to always remember that, I can't let this affect me. I have a job to do, I have a family to take care of, and, I just have to keep pushing forward. So all that combined really helped out as far as focus goes. And it just, another nod to the leadership and how much they care about the Black community.
I just want to add to that. When we were kind of in the heightened heart of it, because it seemed like every couple of weeks it was something else, just when you would kind of decompress, as a Black employee and just try to get back to business as usual. another event would be brought forth about another unarmed death. And so it was like a domino effect, it felt like. But to your point, not just Doug, but our C-suite executives had a listening session with all of our ERGs, and I think they held 12 of them, because at the end of the day, you know, from a Beams perspective, just speaking on behalf of Beams, we wanted to be heard. You know, we wanted an opportunity to not just check mark and say that we've done something as an organization to try to move the needle externally, but our executives really focused on the internal and trying to nurture from within to ensure that their people were okay before really trying to focus on the external. And I just appreciate, this is just another testament to Splunk, appreciate our senior staff for pausing in the midst of being in a crazy time, you know, externally in the world. There's the pandemic, there's these injustices going on. We still have business metrics to try to meet during this time. And they paused and showed up in ways in which they started to incorporate new programs from a learning perspective at the executive staff so that they can be more embedded in understanding things around diversity, equity, and inclusion. They've increased the staff members for that team as well to show the investment in our people, and also just put together more educational programs. I mean, we're not done, right? But the fact that they've invested so far internally shows how much we matter. And for me, that helped to kind of dissipate some of the things that were brewing, right? You know, and it made it easier to have conversations for those who felt like they had to be vulnerable to ask, are you okay? You know, some of our friends who don't look like us, and have these difficult conversations. So they just made, for me, the pathway to getting, you know, to that next stage of seeing a solution come to fruition. They just made it a little bit easier.
Good point, yeah.
Awesome, thank you for adding that. Bobby, we have a question in the chat that I thought might be one you could address. It says, what advice would you give to someone who's been in the workforce as an admin support professional for a while and is looking to make a pivot to admin support roles in the tech sector? The person says she's had a number of interviews in recent months, but has not yet received a job offer, and she's sure she has a lot to offer a company. Do you have any advice for pivoting into tech through your own experience in a similar role?
Yeah, you know, I think it's important for us to self-brand and network. For me, getting into tech, I took the approach of going with what I knew, where I could hit the ground running. So I did, you know, even though I had other skill set, my resume screamed administrative. You know, they would have to read in between the lines and say, oh, she might be good at event planning. She may be good, you know, as a marketing coordinator. So it was really just, let me get my foot in the door with what I know I'm good at, where I know I can execute, you know, seamlessly. And so for me, it was marketing myself in what I knew I would be able to excel in. And then once I got my foot in the door, I was able to rebrand myself, take off the financial clothing that I had become accustomed to, and really submerge myself in this org culture. It also took me networking outside, right? Just asking folks who were a part of the company what they appreciated about it, and finding other ways to partner with them on stretch assignments and projects that were facilitated through the business, whether it was through employee resource groups, or just other initiatives within larger companies, right? And then through those embedded projects and programs, you get your internal stakeholders, and then you're developing your brand starts to develop itself. So then when those opportunities become available, then you are selling yourself, you know, by going through the interview, but you also have people who can rally behind you and speak to your skill set and say, yes, she's the best one, or he is the best one for this role. So I would just recommend that if you are growing in your admin, you know, opportunity, but would like to do something else, maybe stay within that to get your foot in the door. Happy to speak with you. You can look for me on LinkedIn, and then try to rebrand yourself within the organization so that people can see, you know, and play to your strong suits outside of your administrative role so that you can get those opportunities that you're looking to fulfill.
Thank you for that. And I would also add, I'm a huge believer of building champions or sponsors within an organization. to go alongside with presenting your brand. When I came to Splunk, I started as in a somewhat of a sourcing role, learning from some of our more senior recruiters. And I felt like I built a partnership with them, built their trust, and then was able to pivot that into my own lead recruiting opportunity when the situation arose. So I totally agree, like, do what you're good at, highlight that, and then, you will be able, the opportunities will come. But again, you have to ask for them, going back to our first point, right? All right, so here's another question, and I could just throw this to the entire group and see if anyone wants to. Could be a big question, could be a short one, but how has being Black in tech helped you, and how has it hindered you, or has it? Does anyone want to tackle that first? I'm going to throw it to you, Chris, then.
Am I jumping in? What a question, Sophia. So, in terms of it helping, I think the experience of I can work with my experience working in tech in the Bay Area, and there many a time walking into the room and there is me and only me in there. So like these are things that I've been able to navigate that well. And I think being Black and my experiences, and I would say like the life experiences that are beyond the professional walls that we walk in, like when you bring that into an office and into like discussions and strategy, like that is really meaningful. And like a clear example is like I'm working as a junior product manager for a wearables startup. So think like a Fitbit. And so I'm a product manager working on their apps and working with designers and like writing user stories, and like the conversations about who might be using this app, what layouts for the design might we have, even the colors that we're using, the language, the language on the instructions for the mobile app. Like these are things where you really lean into the humanness of your experiences. And so I'm in these discussions, and like these younger designers are like laying out designs that like do not connect to the broad swath of the population that we're trying to attract and help use these things. And so like when I'm bringing my experience of like, have we thought about older people? Have we thought about people that are not from a certain socioeconomic background? Like, what are our target customers? Do we want to go beyond our target customers for this particular feature? Like these questions, these open-ended questions that I'm asking are derived from my lived experience. And so that's how I see being exposed to more, and just having like my life and bringing that into the workplace in a kind of professional way to provoke my colleagues to think differently. That's where I think my kind of Black life, if you will, has been really helpful. And then in terms of hindering, I don't know if I look at it like that. I'm like hyper aware of the challenges that the Black community faces in the professional sense. And so by that, with that knowledge, I'm armed to like navigate things differently and advocate and challenge things so that I keep that door open that has been open for me. And honestly, sometimes doors just randomly open and for me, and then I'll just keep them open. So that's how I look at it too. So not quite a hindrance, but I'm aware, and I try and push forward. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I would say as a recruiter, when I speak about, diversity issues, I would agree. I get a certain level of credibility being a part of the community. But on the flip side, sometimes I do feel like people think it's a personal issue for me, and it is, but it's also, it's more than just a personal issue. It is because I truly believe the company will be more successful with a diverse team as well. So in that would be an example, not necessarily of a hindrance, but while I feel I have credibility by having lived the Black experience, I also feel sometimes that people think, oh, that matters to her because she's half Black, like not because I, am, I guess I'm not putting this into words well, but but that would just be my experience as well. Does anyone else want to add to that, or should I move on?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I will say that I think also working for a global company, just in this type of environment, the workforce is going to consist of people from all walks of life, right? We're all bringing our diversity of thought, our experience, and our own cultural backgrounds. And I think that it's really important to see that what you're bringing to the table is so unique. Just along with every other person who's coming to the table. I would also say that I think that it's really important that, I think, Chris, you're absolutely right. There are, you walk into the room and you may be one of the few people of color, and you just have to get comfortable with that. And I do believe in paying it forward. So if you see other people who might need a hand, a mentor or a coach, just to be able to lend that to them, to help them to really develop their, I call them power skills. But I think it's important to embrace the diversity that you get from working in a global company.
I love that. Thank you, Jennifer. And we do have a question that is targeted towards you as well. What do you think some of those skills or power skills that you just mentioned needed for success in your role, like that you wouldn't necessarily see on a job description? So, when you were, if you were to describe yourself, like what are some of your superpowers in a way that have helped you get where you are?
Yeah, I love this question. I think emotional intelligence is one of the most essential skills that you can develop as a professional, just in general. It requires self-awareness, which I say that's probably my superpower. I often joke that, my level of self-awareness is pretty high, is both a gift and a curse. So it can be easy to, just overanalyze a situation. So you just need a good balance, reflection and action. In my HR role, I would say that the ability to see challenges through the lens of our employees and managers is important, as well as the ability to design solutions for them through their lens. So I love what Chris was talking about, having just that agile way of working and being able to use design thinking, I think is so important. Sometimes we can get caught up in HR speak and just use language that doesn't necessarily resonate with employees and managers. So really, I think that design thinking approach to problem solving is essential. And then probably the last trait I'd call out is the ability just to show up as your authentic self. And we've been talking about that already. My grandmother was a really big influence on my life. So she's, if we think about generations, she was a traditionalist, 5th grade education, left school to go, and basically she was a domestic worker. But one of the things that she always said was, a shut mouth never gets fed. And I've taken that into my career and internalized that. It really is about, if you don't ask, you won't get. So you've got to know your worth. So we talked a little bit about that already, but I think show up as your authentic self. It isn't necessarily something that's specific to my job, but I think it is essential for any professional, especially as a Black woman. And for me, this really means accepting my Texas twang and my big hair, and that I may be the only person that looks like me in a room, and that's okay. And it is okay to use my voice to speak up and share my opinions, because collectively, all of our diverse voices make us better together.
I love that for sure. And I do also really appreciate that at Splunk, we say that we want you to bring your true self to work. And for me, I have a lot of different parts of my personality, and I love that I can feature those here at Splunk. I don't have to hide them. I don't have to dress a certain way. I don't have to talk a certain way. And that's what I really like about it as well. Sean, for you as a regional sales manager, like what would you say are some of those core competencies that are important to be successful in a sales job here at Splunk?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is determination. You really have to be determined. Opportunities are not going to fall in your lap. It's a good thing that Splunk has the market exposure that it has, because it makes it a little easier to talk to companies, but that is definitely number one. The second thing is focus. You really have to stay focused no matter what. You have to have that mindset where you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. A lot of our senior leaders talk about that, and planning your work and working your plan is really big here. So being able to see success before it even happens is really big here, and this is something that I've learned here over the months and years here, and it's something that's definitely led to a lot of success. And just lastly, just making sure you have some urgency around any opportunities as we think about data and the severity of it, whether it's secured or unsecured, or structured or unstructured. Somebody needs something, and that's where Splunk comes in. So it's been helpful to have all of that together to keep all of that focus and drive success here.
Awesome, thank you for that. I'm going to stick with a recruiting question just because we have one from an attendee that just asks, could we shed some light on what the interview process at Splunk looks like? So I can just talk through that very briefly. Most of our non-technical roles follow a pretty standard interview process. We do a recruiter screen. Whether or not a recruiter has done outbound sourcing and reached out to someone on LinkedIn, they still screen them, or we're looking at an inbound applicant who has applied. So you'll have a recruiter screen. Generally, the next step after that would be a conversation with a hiring manager or a senior member of that team as a sort of secondary screen. After that, we would go into a full round of interviews. For most teams, that's generally meeting with 3 to 5 folks that are either on the team or cross-functional partners to that role. There is often an additional stage in sales with a presentation as well after that, and a meeting with a senior leadership, the executive member of that team or a VP level person. And then we would essentially be in offer stage at that point. So I just wanted to address that because a few people are asking, what our interview process looks like and how we go about that. And also, please feel free if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that. Let me move on. We have a few more minutes, so I'd love to throw, just some general advice out there. So why is now a good time to join Splunk? Like, what is it about being here at Splunk that satisfies you both personally and professionally? I'm happy to throw that up to anyone, or I can choose for you. I always feel like I'm going to go for Chris. Chris, you get us started here.
I was gonna say you should call on Bobby for that. But I can, I'm gonna start. I would like to start. So Sophia, the question is why is now a time to join Splunk? Yeah. Well, one, we're just all inside, so you might as well start working from your computer. I'm kidding. So I think, like, with this theme of Black is essential, we need Splunk, and I think that Jubal has been putting out the open job recs that we have here, but in general, we need people that have a vision for where they might take a position, or where they might take a role within the company. There's plenty of tasks that we need to do in order to get something out the door, whether it's closing a sale, whether it's launching a product, whether it's making sure that we are legally compliant on things. But we need people to have a vision for what doing that job looks like. And what Jennifer said, having emotional intelligence. A lot of what we do is connecting with people in order to get something out the door. So the idea that Sophia here has brought us all to do a tech recruiting event is this is an idea that she had, and we're making it real. And so whatever your lane is, we need people to do that. And I think just as a company, we're in a competitive space. And so if we're a data to everything platform, and our space is a data analytics platform for enterprises, we need to creatively approach that market. We don't want to sound and be the same as other companies. Historically, we haven't, and we've been a creative and interesting data platform company, and that only happens because people like us are on calls like these. We're throwing out ideas in meetings, and people are saying, "Oh, we haven't done that before, but why don't we try it?" So that's what I like about Splunk, and we need more. Not that we're lacking in that, but we want more of that. We want to encourage that.
And I like to add to what Chris. Yeah, I like to add to what Christopher said about the competitive space that we're in. And right now, Splunk is leading a huge transformation in our market. And just to give you an idea, when I started less than 2 years ago, there were about 3,000 people here. Now there's 6,000, a little more than that right now. So we're going to need a lot of creative minds to bring about the better business outcomes here. So we're growing like crazy right now. It seems like, even though I just started 2 years ago, it seems like Splunk just began a startup yesterday. So that just gives you an idea of where we're going.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point. Someone in the chat has also asked, any tips that we have for getting your resume looked at that would be helpful. And I'd like to just circle back to Bobby's point about knowing what you're good at and what you've established. The number one thing I would say is apply to a role that you meet most of the requirements for. I know that sounds like very basic, but you don't have to hit all 10 of the bullet points. You can stretch a little bit, but make sure you hit 6 or 7 of them, and then spin how you have those other skills that are needed in the role. Generally, when we look at resumes, and I'm just directly addressing this question, we look for, the critical 2 or 3 things that are most important for being successful in the role. And, we evaluate based on those, and then we go a step further and see, does someone have the next 2 or 3 skills that would be essential? So, just make sure that you hit the sort of the closest, apply to roles that fit your background. And that may sound a little bit basic, but I think it's important to highlight, have the skills and at least a bit of the experience that we're looking for in that particular role. I am going to turn this over, since we're coming to the end of our time. I just wanted to leave it to everyone. What advice do you wish that someone would have shared with you when you were starting your career in tech? And I'm going to just kick it off myself and just say, I would have learned not necessarily any technical skills, but I would have learned a little bit more about the technologies of the companies where I worked. I've been in a variety of HR and recruiting roles, and sometimes I felt a little bit separated from what we were doing. And if you can understand what the company's mission is, then it helps you be better at your job as well. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I can probably piggyback on what you're saying, Sophia. Definitely learn the business. Understand how all the pieces fit together. It's so easy to get caught into just, this is what I do, or this is what my department does. Understand how all the pieces align, and then just be willing to step outside of your comfort zone and embrace the ever-changing world that is tech.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Well, I just wanted to thank everyone so much for joining today. We're super excited to have had you here, and I wanted to give an extra special thank you to our amazing panelists here, Christopher, Sean, Jennifer, Felicia, and Bobby. And we had an amazing team behind the scenes helping us get this up and running. So big thank you to everyone there as well. I hope everyone has an amazing day, and we look forward to seeing you in the Splunk family maybe at some point.
Thank you.